Our channel always brings you the most dramatic, shocking, and unforgettable updates from the world of Beyond the Gates. What follows is a full, detailed breakdown of the latest explosive chapter, a tale filled with betrayals, dark secrets, and a shocking attack that leaves the Dupree circle trembling. The events that unfolded in this episode will forever reshape the way the characters see one another, and as the dust settles, no one will walk away unscathed. Kat and Chelsea had been preparing for their long-awaited debut, an event meant to mark not only their ambitions but also their new place in a world where appearances mattered more than truth. Behind the polished glamour of gowns, stage lights, and carefully orchestrated smiles, tension was mounting beneath the surface. Every character was burdened with secrets that threatened to spill into the open at any moment. While they were trying to hold their composure, the storm was already brewing in the shadows. The moment came swiftly and mercilessly. A figure emerged from the darkness, striking fear into the atmosphere and breaking the illusion of security. Everyone expected Kat to be the intended victim, for she had made plenty of enemies, and her rising status had painted a clear target on her back. Yet the reality turned far more devastating when Naomi became the true prey of the assailant. With no chance to defend herself, Naomi collapsed under the violent strike, her fall creating panic, screams, and chaos that ripped through the carefully constructed facade of the evening. Dani rushed forward in shock, her heart racing, the glamour of the night now drowned in horror. But what she found in the midst of the chaos was even more terrifying. Scattered on the floor was the weapon used in the attack, and etched into its cold, polished surface were fingerprints that belonged unmistakably to Bill. The discovery left Dani frozen, torn between fear and disbelief, knowing that what she held in her hands had the power to destroy not only reputations but entire lives. Bill had always been considered a pillar of stability within the Dupree circle, a man whose counsel was sought when crises threatened to shatter everything. For years, his reputation had been untarnished, his loyalty unquestioned, and his influence unmatched. To see his name attached to such a violent act felt impossible, yet the evidence appeared irrefutable. In the rising noise of sirens, shouts, and hurried footsteps, all eyes shifted toward Bill. The disbelief in the crowd twisted into suspicion, and suspicion quickly began to morph into accusation. But what lay beneath the surface was darker still. Dani's mind turned to the events of the previous days, when Ted had approached Bill for legal advice. The timing was too perfect, too deliberate to ignore. Ted, ever calculating, had slipped into Bill's trust with quiet precision, placing him in a position where his fingerprints could be left on the weapon without raising alarm. The revelation that this may have been a trap planted by Ted added another layer of dread to the unraveling mystery. For if Ted had indeed orchestrated the attack, then Bill was not only innocent but a pawn in a much larger game. Naomi, lying unconscious and broken, became the tragic centerpiece of the conspiracy. Her fall was not random, it was part of a design meant to fracture alliances, to pit friend against friend, and to erode the foundation of trust that had once held the group together. Dani, torn between fear for Naomi's life and outrage at the twisted betrayal, knew that what had begun as a night of celebration had now become the opening move in a war for control and survival. Anita and Vernon, already weighed down by the responsibilities of the family legacy, were thrown into turmoil by the attack. Their authority, once unshakable, now seemed fragile in the face of betrayal and bloodshed. Every whisper in the room seemed to chip away at their control, with questions arising about whether they had enemies within their own walls. Their children, their allies, even their closest confidants were now potential traitors. Kat, whose event was overshadowed by the violence, found herself standing in a spotlight she never wanted. The attack had been meant to destroy, and though Naomi had been the victim, Kat was left to face the rumors, the suspicion, and the dangerous implication that she had been the one marked for death. Chelsea, shaken by what she witnessed, clung to the fragile thread of loyalty, but even she began to wonder how deep the shadows reached and who among them had orchestrated the bloodshed. The tension escalated when Bill was forced to defend himself, not through words but through the weight of his reputation alone. Yet reputation is fragile in a world where perception becomes truth. The doubt seeded by Ted's manipulation spread quickly, infecting minds and poisoning relationships. Long-standing trust between Bill and Anita began to fracture, while Vernon questioned whether they had allowed a wolf to walk freely among their flock. Meanwhile, Ted remained in the shadows, his motives concealed, his expression unreadable. To those watching closely, his hands appeared clean, his demeanor calm, as if he were the only one untouched by the storm. But for Dani, the pieces of the puzzle were forming in her mind, revealing a picture far darker than anyone else dared to imagine. She alone suspected that Ted had engineered the attack, not to kill Naomi, but to strike fear, to manipulate loyalties, and to frame Bill as a monster. The episode spiraled into chaos as Naomi's condition worsened, her fate hanging by a thread in the sterile light of a hospital room. Doctors worked feverishly, but whispers of death lingered in every hallway. For Dani, the thought of losing Naomi was unbearable, yet the thought of letting Ted's plan succeed was even worse. She knew that exposing him would mean placing herself in grave danger, but silence would mean condemning Bill to a fate he did not deserve. Every character was left scarred by the events. Kat wrestled with the knowledge that she was meant to be the target. Chelsea doubted whether she had chosen the right path by tying her fate to Kat. Anita questioned her leadership. Vernon struggled with the weight of suspicion tearing through his family. Dani carried the unbearable burden of truth she could not yet speak. And Bill stood at the center of it all, accused, betrayed, and abandoned by those he had once protected. The night that was meant to be a celebration had turned into a battlefield, and in the smoke of suspicion and fear, a new reality emerged. No one could be trusted, no secret could remain hidden, and no alliance was unbreakable. Naomi's fall was not the end, it was the beginning of a reckoning that would unravel the lives of everyone tied to the Dupree family. The gates that once stood tall to protect the family's power now seemed like prison walls closing in on them. Every decision from this point forward would determine who survived the storm and who would be consumed by it. The question was no longer who had been attacked but who would be next. This shocking episode marks a turning point for Beyond the Gates, proving once again that beneath the elegance and wealth lies a world of danger, deceit, and devastating betrayal. Remember to follow and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another explosive twist from Beyond the Gates.